Hey guys, let's get straight to the point. Yes, you can definitely use the Fujifilm 27mm F2.8 for portrait photography because I did it and I love the images. Some people might think that a 27mm lens is too wide and f2.8 is too slow to blur out the background for portrait photos. But to me, you just need to know how to work with the lens to get the style of portraits you want. First, this lens will not perform as well if you want to use it for low light portrait photography because of its f2.8 aperture. It will not let that much light into the sensor and you will have to use much higher ISO, which creates more noise. So in order to get good portrait photos out of the 27mm f2.8, you need good lighting for most situations. I was very lucky to have two photo sessions with my friends using the Fujifilm 27mm f2.8 pancake lens on the X Pro 2. One of them is a studio white backdrop settings with two constant video lights, one as the key light and one as the hair light. Yes, I was using video lights for photos because I don't have any decent flashlight or speed light, but it totally worked. If you're interested in how to use constant video lights for photography, let me know in the comment section below and I will try to make a tutorial video about it. To be honest with you, I was very surprised and happy about the results. And there's a lot of benefits using video lights for photos as well, so stay tuned. All the photos are straight out of camera JPEGs with zero editing. I was using the standard Provia profile on the X Pro 2 with no adjustments at all. This is why I love using Fujifilm cameras for photos because all the photos look absolutely amazing without editing. I literally gave all the JPEGs to my friends and they are all very happy with the results. I was at f2.8 for all the photos when I was using the 27mm lens. As you can see, all the photos are very sharp. f2.8 is actually not bad on an APS-C camera like the X Pro 2. It gets all the facial features in focus, including the eyes, nose, and ears. Unlike some super fast lens that you might have the subject's ears or nose blurred out. Yes, you might not be able to see every single eyelashes when you zoom in on the photo at 200%, but I'm pretty sure not many people do that except us, who are into photography and it is just fun to pixel peep sometimes. So I really think the 27mm f2.8 is more than sharp enough for portrait photos. At 27mm, which is around 40mm full frame equivalent, I don't think I see too much distortion on the subject's face when I was taking the portrait photos, unless the subject's face is much closer to the lens than their body. You will see that in some of the sample photos, but I don't think it is that bad because 40mm seems very natural to me. You can actually use the small amount of distortion as an advantage because you can ask the subject to have their hands or feet closer to the lens while you focus on the subject's face. This way, you will get a more creative photo and some subtle but effective foreground blur on the subject's hands or feet. You can't really do that with a long lens. You might notice that most of the photos are with the subject sitting down. That is mainly because my backdrop was not tall enough, and I think using a wider lens like the 27mm f2.8 is better with either a half body photo or the subject sitting down. You can definitely take a full body photo, but for some reason it is just not that special or as interesting with this lens. For full body photos, I still prefer using a longer focal length like the Fujifilm 56mm f1.2, which is definitely my favorite lens for outdoor portraits. But let's get back to the 27mm f2.8. 27mm on an APS-C sensor is also good for on-camera flash photography because you are much closer to the subject and the flash can reach your subject much easier. This is great if you want to get the vintage flash look with a modern digital camera. It is definitely a creative choice, but I like this kind of look a lot personally. The second photo session I did with my friend was at my friend's house. We were trying to get a natural and cozy look during the session, and the 27mm f2.8 lens did a great job because it included a lot of the environment in the frame to show a natural daily look. This lens is great for environmental portrait photography as well. By including more elements in the photo besides the main subject, you are giving more information to the viewers to know where the subject was. And it is much better when it comes to storytelling compared to a photo with only the subject in focus and everything blurred to nothing. Again, different focal lengths tell different stories. However, since a lot more things will be in focus in the frame, you will have to be more careful not to have anything too distracting that will take the focus away from the subject. This is where the fun comes in. You will have to carefully include or place the elements that will enhance the story, almost like doing set design in a movie or TV show. Since my friend wants a more cozy vibe for the photos and she has a lot of plants and a big window with a lot of natural light coming in, I was immediately drawn to take photos by the window. Having the plants in the frame really helps complementing and enhancing the natural side of my friend, and I think the photos really tell the story. Now I kind of know why I prefer having the subject sitting down when I'm using the 27mm f2.8 lens. It is because of the lens compression. A wider lens will make everything around the subject look relatively smaller to the subject. So if the subject is standing, it will make the subject even bigger in an unnatural way. I know a lot of people like to have super shallow depth of field with super blurry background and bokeh to isolate the subject. And yes, the 27mm f2.8 lens will not give you that, at least not a lot. Both the wider view and the slower aperture at f2.8 will make a lot of things in focus, even when you're taking the photos at f2.8. But it doesn't mean that you cannot create depth in the photo with this lens. You just need to be more creative by including things like foreground elements like plants, table, couch, or anything really at the location to help creating the depth and also framing the subject. If you don't have anything around, you can try asking the subject to put their hands or feet up against the lens. You'll be surprised by the look and the depth that it creates, because I was surprised by it. Another tip of using a slower lens that cannot blur out the background as much is to have the subject closer to the background. With the subject closer to the background, people naturally expect both the subject and the background to be in focus. By getting rid of the blurry background expectations, people will once again be more focused on the story that you're trying to tell. This is also why using the 27mm f2.8 lens is totally fine in a studio environment with a backdrop, because there's nothing to blur out if the background is just in a plain color, unless you have backdrops with textures or prints. Another set of portrait photos I took with this lens is using the technique of getting very close to your subject. Since the distortion of this lens is not that bad, getting closer to the subject will not be a big problem. The only thing is that the minimum focus distance is not that great with this lens, so you can only get to about shoulders to head kind of framing distance. With this kind of distance, you will capture a lot more emotion from the subject. So my suggestion is to try to get a catch light in the subject's eyes, because it will really connect the viewers to the person in the photo. Catch light is the tiny light reflection you get in a person's eyes. They always have this in anime characters to try to add a soul to them. Since this kind of type framing emphasizes a lot on the emotions, I like taking these photos in black and white so I can eliminate any distractions from colors in the photo. Again, it is definitely a creative choice, so let me know how you like to present this kind of photos. I would love to learn from you. Also, because we're so close to the subject, you will get a lot more background separations, bokeh, or background blur even at f2.8. It will not completely blur out the background, so you will still be able to tell where the person is at. I know it is fun to blur things out. I was like that when I first started, but sometimes it is okay to have more things in focus too. The last reason why I think the 27mm f2.8 lens is great not only for portrait is because of its size. It is a pancake lens, super lightweight, and it will not take up too much space in your bag. So I don't mind carrying it at all to have more flexibility in terms of framing and composition when I go on a photo session. By the way, if you're wondering if you should get the first gen or the second gen of the 27mm f2.8, the only major differences are the aperture ring and a little sharper images on the Gen 2. You can use the front command dial to control the aperture on the Gen 1, so if you can find a Gen 1 with a good price, that's not a bad idea at all. That's it. Those are the reasons why I think the Fujifilm 27mm f2.8 lens is good for portrait photography. You just need to know what you can get out of it. To me, with the combination of the 27mm f2.8 and the 56mm f1.2 lenses, you can do a lot already. Let us know what your favorite portrait lenses are in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.